It's the end of October 2024. We are here at Love Farmstay. This is part 5 of the costs of living off-grid. And thank you for those of you who have stood by and watched parts 1 through 4. I wanted to wrap it up with part 5. Odds and ends, the things that you might wind up having to purchase that nobody tells you about. So let's get right into it. One thing off the top is that I wanted to say you should be taking notes. You should get a piece of paper and a pen and write some of this stuff down. If you haven't figured it out yet, I am currently off-grid in Portugal. I thought it was obvious, but just in case you haven't figured it out, let me tell you. That is the facts. So, needless to say, I know what I'm talking about, and I know the things that I'm telling you work. And I wouldn't, like, if you follow the Morning Banana Show, if you follow the things I do, you know it's not really my style to lie to people. Not my thing. So I know what I'm talking about, and you should be taking notes and writing these things down if you don't know or trying to learn about living off-grid. All that being said, the odds and ends, the things that nobody will tell you that you might want to prepare for. One is you have to figure out what you're going to do with all the poop. So you can look up averages. People usually clean their septic tanks once every 3 to 5 years. I would say cleaning out your septic tanks, if you have one, if you wind up getting one, you know, every year is a good idea. Using enzyme in your septic tank once a month, a package of enzyme to naturally dissolve the biological matter is probably an even better idea. And so look up where to get some enzymes, and that will be a great help for you. So when you come to Love Farmstay, you can see I have compost station, gray water station over here on the right, and in the middle is a septic tank. And it's full of exactly what you might think it's full of. And if you use enzyme, what winds up happening is it breaks down the fecal matter, which is a big help, because then you're only dealing with a liquid more so than a bunch of solids. So one thing you're going to need to figure out is obviously what to do with all the poop. One of my top priorities when we got here was to find a guy who would clean out the septic tank, because somebody else had been using it before, and as you know, we're vegan, so we don't want meat eater septic tank. We want cleaned out septic tank the best we can. My neighbor's going by. So finding somebody to clean out a septic tank, if you're not willing to do it yourself, what that involves is basically you have to have water on the truck, and you have to have some type of suction on the truck, and a storage tank on the truck. And so the guys wear gloves, sometimes they wear masks, and if it's rock solid feces, then they'll use water to break it up, and then they're sucking it at the same time with a tube, at least 2.5 inches, 2 inches around there. And then it's all on the truck, and then they go dump it somewhere that they're legally allowed to, hopefully. But something like that here costs 200 euros. So if you're calling the guy once a year, then 200 euros isn't that bad, but they have to also be able to drive to where you are. So keep that in mind. If you're getting a septic tank, you can look up the averages of how often it's cleaned out. The tank itself may cost you, a couple $1,000s. Installing it will take some time and energy. You have to make sure to set it properly, ideally in gravel if you're putting it in the ground, and not just put it in mud and cover it. So you have to dig a big hole, obviously, first, and then set in the gravel. Sometimes they actually ask you to concrete it as well. The idea is that it shouldn't shift around once the septic tank is in there. And then the maintenance, as I was saying, is adding enzyme once a month, in my opinion. People, depending on how many people are pooping or how many people you have in the unit, it will change how often you should have it cleaned. But, once every 2 years, once every year if you're a few people. So septic tank is a cost. If you're not a plumber and you're trying to get off grid, I feel like there are ways around it, but it would be good to have the phone number of a guy who would come out to where you're at and do plumbing. So I am a plumber. I'm fine with plumbing. I don't have any issue plumbing, but I understand that a lot of guys can't do plumbing. So, when I moved into my house, for example, in Niagara, I redid every connection myself. I redid every lighting fixture myself. I rewired every socket myself. So, as a technician, as a former technician who's retired now, I have a various background of like cross disciplines that are good in the home services, basically. So living off grid is like kind of like putting my home service skills on easy mode. It's a lot easier, and also there's nobody out here to try to impress, so it works, and that's all it needs to do, right? So septic tank, and my advice on that would be to look into the costs, look into the enzyme's not going to cost you anything, and maybe like 70, 80 Canadian, like 100 Canadian, 70 US, and maybe 50 euros a year. So that it does have a cost to buy enzyme to maintain it. So you can get scented enzyme as well if you're into that, like mint scented enzyme, but it's important. You can put it down the toilet drain itself or just throw it directly in the septic tank if you're brave enough. And then as far as where you're going to live, that will have a cost. So I've been looking at all different types of domiciles and accommodations. You can, for example, if you're paying attention to my first and second installment of like, you've heard that the location matters. So if you wind up getting a really nice location and you're not legally allowed to build permanent structures on it, for example, you could take a really nice tiny home for anywhere from 10,000 Canadian dollars or like 10,000 US dollars all the way to 500,000 or more. So they range all over the place, all over the spectrum, from cheap to expensive. Another thing that you could do, which I was thinking of, is getting a boathouse, basically, a sea on the home, like a boathouse, a home for the sea. It's like a boat, but it's a houseboat. There you go, sea house, houseboat. Because they're all self-sustained units. If you can put it on a trailer and drag it to your property, then you still have to worry about what to do with the poop and some other things. But like if you've watched part 3 and you realized, you have some ideas about how you can manage the water, then now you have a better idea of, like, if you combine the lessons that you learned in part 3 of my video to this now and think about what you can do to get off the grid, then you can really put this off-grid idea anywhere. And if you're struggling and don't know like where to go or what to do, you can just message me or come see us at Love Farm Stay in Portugal, and I'll guide you. Like, we're not doing everything to the absolute top elite class here that you can do off-grid, but we're doing a project here as a vegan off-grid farm stay, still in our first year, and we've been rocking it. I have learned a lot. We don't have any major issues. Everything currently works. And it's because one of my philosophies, as you know, if you've watched the other series, the other parts of the series, is to have a backup for the backup. So things do go wrong, but we fix them. And while they're wrong, the idea is not to have any downtime for important things, So I'm trying to do odds and ends here just to wrap up with this whole series so we don't have to keep having these conversations. I'm just trying to get it all off the top of my head. And I've had some time to kind of reflect over the last little while that I've been working on this video project for you guys. But yeah, so the water pumps can range from anywhere from 50 euros to 200, 300 euros. It depends on how much water you're trying to pump. I'm using a pretty basic 50 euro pump, and you're looking at what type of bar or back pressure, whether it be 60 psi, 100 psi, 2 bar, 3 bar, whatever. So you would want to look up what type of residential pressure that you are used to. And the reason that I'm saying you have to look it up as far as water pumps go is because so I've traveled the world a little bit, and people like different pressure settings. So I'm not going to tell you that residential pressure is 60 psi where I'm from, and then you're like, well, that's not enough pressure, Adam. Also, I've serviced pressure washers, so I know that people sometimes really like pressure and sometimes people don't. So it's really a unique thing. So you would want to find, if you can, what pressure setting that you like for your water, or try to figure out like what is my current pressure setting where I'm living for the PSI. You can just type it in on the internet, and the internet will tell you for your city or your region. Or you can call your senior water quality guys for your region or wherever you're at. But anyway, my point is, find out what pressure you're used to, and then you buy a pump that matches that. Ideally, a self-priming pump, and then you prime it. Again, circles back to basic plumbing issues. If you don't know how to prime something, you're gonna have some problems. So you need to learn how to prime something. Like old school pumps, you had to prime them. You're there, dumping water down both sides and going up and down until you finally feel a suction lock, or a liquid lock between, so there's no air gaps. Priming, sometimes what happens is if the temperature is right, we've lost prime, your pump will lose prime. But if you have a self-priming pump, it's a little bit easier. Prime the snot out of it, put the one end of the tubing into your tank with a filter on the end, and ideally a foot valve. I was going to say a step foot valve, but a foot valve, so that it's a directional flow. The water doesn't fall out of the bottom of the step valve or bottom of the tube. It sucks it up through there and pumps it into your off-grid domicile. Off-grid domiciles, wherever you want to do it, you could stay in a tent. I'm not saying that you have to live off-grid in a tiny home like I'm doing. You could build your own home. A lot of guys do that. And if you were watching these videos thinking, he's going to tell me how to build an off-grid house because I know he has a cottage and he's good with building things. Like, we've built so many things. I helped my uncle build a cottage in PEI in like 1998, and I was going out there every year for years. And the cost of these tiny homes and sea can homes and all the new ideas have basically put this whole pipe dream that I had of like, I'm gonna build a house with my bare hands, put all that to the side, because you don't, like, unless you really want to, you don't really need to anymore. And it's might be more practical to just buy something ready made. These $10,000 units that we've been seeing are all self-contained, 1 bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, appliances even, and you can buy them and they'll deliver them to your property. Really, all you would need at that point is to hook up propane for the stove, hook up the electricity as we were talking about in part 4, and then figure out what to do with the poop, and you'd be rocking. And you could do that anywhere. So like I've said, I could get you off grid in Portugal for really, really affordable, on the sheep. I think I said something like 6 or 7,000 euros you could probably do it for. Not including the domicile, because I don't know where you want to live or what you want to live in. But depending on that, you'd have to look into that yourself. But you want to live in something that you're not going to freeze to death in. So if you live somewhere warm year round, like Mexico, like Africa, like Portugal, look it up. Where I am in the Algarve, 0.0000000 people have frozen to death here in the Algarve. It's a physical impossibility to freeze to death. So people here aren't worried about freezing to death in the winter. So if you're not worried about freezing to death, then that takes off a lot of the heating costs for the winter and makes your whole winter a lot more affordable if you're off grid, right? So again, location is everything. You have to consider your domicile and where you're staying in all seasons, and you have to consider, is it safe as well? So If you have the perfect domicile, I can't tell you what to choose. It's really up to you. But if you have the perfect situation or you've built the perfect situation, next I would say is grab a cameras. Maybe put a fence around your property because you never know who's puttering around at night. Even in PEI at our cottage, we've had it robbed a couple times by the locals because they know when the people are there and when they're not, and they assume that a lot of the people summer there and then leave in the winter, which they're not wrong in that assumption. I'm here. I'm not in PEI right now. I'm in Portugal. So, shout out to all shout out to all the robbers in PEI, all the thieves in PEI. Cameras will only get you so far. You can film the people robbing you, I guess, right? So if you want to have some protection, even weapons, if you're not home, the robbers will break in and steal your weapons and be on camera, and then you'll deal with, now some thief has your weapons and they might be using them to commit crimes if they're registered to you. That would be a nightmare, so keep that in mind. Other costs, yeah, I would say buy a set of cameras if you can. As far as Starlink goes, you're probably going to want Wi-Fi. I don't need Starlink here, but you can use Starlink or something like that. The initial cost, I think, is like a few $100. It's like 400 euros here, but depending on where you're watching, you could buy the Starlink, and then you have to pay a monthly fee after that. But let's just say it's 100, maybe a little less than $100 a month for super high speed data. But you can have that Wi-Fi anywhere in the world, so you could do your YouTube streaming, your live stream gaming, your Twitch streams. You could upload these videos, and you can tell me how you did it off grid, inspired by Adam Josh in the Morning Banana Show. But yeah, if you want to get off grid, theoretically you could start in a small tent like that, and if you're in the right environment, that's our Bobble Longo tent, you could theoretically start like that and start your whole thing. But again, if you have kids, where I'm coming from is I have a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old and a girlfriend, common law partner, future wife, who, to be honest, really has found in the last year that she really would prefer to be on grid. So she's like, Adam, we could continue to do this, or we can buy a house and then continue to own this. So, men, this is what happens. You spoil the ladies with that electricity and that running water. So it's just a different style of life to live off grid. And if you want to dabble your foot in it and see what it's like, then I would suggest to come see us at Love Farm Stay and see for yourself. I think I've covered all the unforeseen expenses. These things might come up. You might need tools. It's probably a wise idea to just have a basic toolkit, a drill. Some wrenches, nothing too fancy. You could spend a couple $100, maybe $300 or a few €100 and buy some tools to get yourself off grid. You see where my head is at about security, though, is well, if you get robbed and you're filming it, it doesn't really do you any good other than you film the robbers. So that is a concern that most people have. And the one that I share, some type of security system is good, but if it's a Wi-Fi based camera, then you're going to need to have the data signal first. So make sure you get internet. But yeah, if you've added up all these costs that I've been talking about through the series, depending on your domicile, not including the domicile or where you're going to live, you could do it, as I've said, I'm pretty confident for under, I'm in Europe, right? So under 6,000 euros, I could probably get it done for you. Depending on the domicile, I don't know. The domicile is up to you, bro. You want to buy a €100 tent? That's a domicile out here. You could live in a tent. I don't want to live in a tent, but you could if you're by yourself. So it's not like save up your hard-earned money for 20 years and then one day you can live the dream of being off grid. No, just take a couple paychecks and let's go. You could get it done. There's recurring costs, yes. And this is what I'm telling you is I've told you about the recurring costs. We have property taxes that you're going to have to pay. They're once a year here and they're €300. It's not a big deal. I've told you about the water costs, which is in my case €50 plus groceries on top of that. We're a family of 4. I'm spending about $1,000 and then $1,000 a month in groceries. We eat a lot of high quality food though. If you want to eat crappy food or go eat at Mickey D's or something, I mean, that's on you. And then the vehicles that you're going to have, maybe a truck if you need one, and a car. Again, transportation is kind of on you, right? I can't tell you what you're going to spend on transportation, but those are the odds and ends. And all of that to say, it's easier to get off grid now than it ever has been. So if it's something that is like rattling around in your mind, you should do it. If it's something that's calling out to you from your heart to do, then let's go. Let's do it. Sometimes I get accused of having some like superiority complex, or like have some inner penance work that I have to do. Like I've been accused of being an overachiever. Man, I'm just living my life out here. Can say a lot of things. We're out here in the mountains of Portugal. I wanted to do this 5-part series for you. It's a beautiful day in the hillside. So if this type of lifestyle is for you, to do farming, and you don't have to do farming to live off grid, by the way, it's just an idea. I can park an RV here. We're having the World Vegan Day on Friday here, and we have over 20 people scheduled to come here. And so there is a genuine interest in living off grid. I'm going to have 20 people, some of whom I know, most of them I don't, and they're going to be talking to us about the same things that we've been talking about. Like, how do you guys live off grid? Lucky for me, I've been filming a 5-part series where I can kind of explain to them, this is what we've been up to and how we do it. I'll be the first to admit it's not for everybody. I think Desiree, my common law partner, will tell you that after a year of living off grid, she's realized that it's not for everyone, and she can do it, but she's also not surprised that she can do it, especially having me as a partner. But it's something that she wasn't surprised that she could do, and she would probably prefer, if given the choice, to stay on grid and, you know, live that on grid lifestyle. You know. And for me, having started building things in my teens and then been in the construction industry, building things, renting houses, owning homes, helping with my dad's businesses, none of this is a challenge. It's kind of fun. I enjoy that every end of the month. There's no stress about rent. We don't have any rent. We don't have a mortgage. We own it outright, everything you see. And there's no stress about, oh man, how are we going to pay for this? And as far as electrical brownouts and blackouts, we wouldn't know if the town had a blackout or a brownout, because we make our own electricity here, or harness our own electricity here. So maybe if the internet, my service goes off, we use Mio as a local provider in Portugal. If that stopped working, I would know, oh, there's no internet. So I hope that helps you. My internet package, by the way, while we're on the topic, is 37 euros a month. But that's for unlimited data, and you need that out here, especially with uploading all these videos for you guys. If you feel like supporting me, if you've liked the videos and decided, I've seen enough, I want to support this guy, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/adamjosh.com, become a monthly supporter, or send me a one-time donation. If you're in North America, you can e-transfer me, adam@adamjosh.com. I've written a radical investment strategy book that I have not found a decent printer here for yet to print the book out, and I do not want to give it as an ebook. But you can pre-order the book from my website, adamjosh.com/shop, and you'll see the book there. I haven't even given the title out, but it is fully written. I could read it to you over the phone. I want to find a good printer for it, so if you know a good print shop in the area, I'm thinking about printing it in Germany. I have some other priorities right now, but that is on my list of things to do. So you can pre-order the book. It's not that expensive. You can buy one of my t-shirts that say, do not reincarnate. It's also on my website. Yeah, so I appreciate it. You can meditate with us at 11:11. You can come here with us, or come see us at Love Farm Stay. would require you to get on a plane and come to Portugal, I would recommend to fly into the Faro International Airport. Let us know you're here to come visit or see, schedule your stay to see, you know, how many days you want to stay here, whether you want to stay here in one of our tents or in our RV parking behind me, and we can chat in person about all these things. It's affordable to stay here. I am going to charge you, but it's not going to be like booking.com or Airbnb prices. So you can eat our food as well while you're here, and we can chit chat. So I appreciate you staying through to these 5 parts of the cost of living off grid. I hope that if you are looking into living off grid, that this has helped you. And I feel like you should count the costs before you do it. But on the flip side of that, you're going to learn a lot when the rubber meets the road and when you're doing it. So don't be so hard on yourself. Learn as you go. Again, it's handy to have a plumber's phone number if you're not a plumber, an electrician's phone number if you're not an electrician. But just keep in mind, you know, in your proximity to your location, the logistics of these guys actually being able to get to you. So it's better to work towards independence and self-sustainability than relying on someone else. With all that being said, you can follow me on X at adamjosh.com. I appreciate you guys hanging through. I love you guys, and I'm out here if you want to chit chat. Take care, everyone. Are you tired of reincarnating? Me too. Now show the world that you don't want to reincarnate with this Do Not Reincarnate t-shirt.
I'm off the grid. Got text from my ribs.